In America today, both STEM and career and technical education are two of the fastest growing and most important pathways to achieve economic mobility and sustainability, as well as employers face the grim reality of worker shortages in fields such as healthcare, technology, and advanced manufacturing, and the skilled trades. Schools are playing more of a critical role in preparing students for the careers in demand and for the future. It's estimated that a number of skilled trades positions, potentially in the millions, will be needed to be filled within the forthcoming decade, making career-connected learning more pivotal and essential than ever before. This week I'm joined by my friend Dr. Heather Handler. She is the program coordinator for career and technical education, STEM, and youth apprenticeships for Cecil County Public Schools, with 18 years of experience as an educator and instructional leader. Dr. Handler has dedicated her career to helping students discover their passions while also developing the skills necessary to succeed in today's modern and ever-changing workforce. She began her career as a classroom teacher in science, technology, biology, and engineering. Along the way, Dr. Handler gained first-hand insights on how students learn and how to adapt lesson plans to maximize how each student can experience the full heights of their potential through engagement, exploration, and real-world application. Today, she leads initiatives that connects education through innovation, through initiatives that move the needle of progress forward when it comes to educational and career advancement. Through STEM initiatives, robotics education, curriculum development, youth apprenticeship opportunities, which is all fueled by a lifelong love of learning. And Dr. Handler joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Dr. Handler, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to talk to you all about your experience in STEM and career education. It's great to see you, and happy Thursday to you, my friend.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Handler, I know that you have spent the last 18 years on a mission to help students through their career and technical and STEM education, my friend. So I'm wondering if we can start our conversation by you telling me what in your view, equates to educational excellence in today's modern educational system when it comes to things like career and STEM education. What are your thoughts, my friend?
So, I think when we're talking about the modern sphere of STEM and STEM education and CTE in general, we have to make sure that we're, moving in the modern direction of how to think. Because the skills that are needed in the future are not going to be something that we know about right now. And so we have to give them tools and skills to move forward, and we have to make sure that it's something that they know how to think and they have skills that could travel with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, Doctor, I'm curious to ask you your thoughts on igniting student curiosity and equipping young people with the real world skills and, passion they need to succeed in career and STEM education. So, what goes into igniting a student's curiosity in your view, my friend?
So I have to say every student and every person is different. And so you have to figure out what sets them, what fits them and what skills fits them. And that's where the real work comes into play. So the earlier we get to that student, the earlier we ask questions and the earlier we expose them to opportunities is the earlier they're going to figure out what they're good at. And we're going to figure out where their passion lies. Oftentimes, they know, oh, I'm good with my hands or I'm good with math or whatever it is. But we have to ask them questions and we have to make sure everybody gets that opportunity to see what's available, at least in our area. And that's where I struggle the most because you want to make sure every student has the ability to see an opportunity and to participate in that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And Doctor, I know that your career began in the classroom, teaching everything from middle school science to high school biology and technology and engineering. So I'm wondering how those experiences shaped your understanding of how students learn and what lessons from the classroom still influence your work today, my friend.
Well, I taught across a large range. I taught everything from middle school all the way up through high school. And I taught everything from regular grades and shop class all the way to ACE and IGSE, Cambridge level classes for biology. So, in middle school, every grade's different. In middle school, I learned that engagement comes before content. You have to have a great relationship with all students, but you better engage those middle schoolers. And in high school, I learned that you really need some real world experience and you need to relate to their lives some way. So the biggest lesson I carry with me is that students don't learn by being told. They learn by doing, struggling a little, and then kind of figuring it out. And some of my best teaching moments were the messy ones. They were when the lab didn't go as planned and we had to troubleshoot together. They were when something failed, usually, or at least a student's portion of it failed. And so they got to figure out, okay, how do I make this work? And I was very strategic on how I graded them. So I want to make sure that, people know, like, don't take the shortcut. And it's okay if something doesn't work because everybody learns.
Yeah, absolutely. And Doctor, I'm curious to ask you your opinion on, the whole concept of equitable education, particularly in career and technical education, because as you know, not all one learning style fits every student, and the rapid rise of career and technical education is something that educators need to pay attention to these days. So tell me why you think career technical education and vocational education is on the rise, and the importance of meeting students where they are when it comes to career and technical education, because it's a real wave of the future. And I'm curious to get your answer there, my friend.
So this is close to my heart because I believe access should never be a privilege. It's a right. If you go to a public school system, you have the right to have access to opportunity. So students with disabilities have so much to contribute, and too often our system underestimates them because it's a system. It can't differentiate between different types of people. And so I think that we have a real opportunity here because hands-on learning is naturally inclusive. And when we design it well, a student who might struggle with a timed exam, they're going to shine when they're building or maybe troubleshooting. Someone with a disability, and I'm sure you know this, they troubleshoot all the time. They have to. And so they might be really good at it. You never really know what you're going to get when it comes to that, and you should give them that opportunity. So as long as we can have intentional support, like accommodations that travel, employer partners who understand how to hire different types of people and how to train them, if we get that right, great things can happen. And I've seen it happen. I've seen students with disabilities discover real talents, and it's a wonderful thing when you get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. And just building on that point, students with disabilities, I know this from personal experience because I have a cerebral palsy. They're natural problem solvers, aren't they?
Absolutely. And that's the best kind of worker to have, because
Uh,
nothing goes right all the time.
well, where would the fun be in life if everything went right all the time, right?
That's right. Hmm.
So now, Doctor, you transitioned to the program coordinator for Cecil County Public Schools Answer for Career in STEM Education, and I'm wondering the evolution that you've gone through, being able to transition from impacting one classroom to an entire program of possibilities. So tell me about your day job and how it's helped you evolve as an educator, my friend.
So the transition from one classroom all the way to a huge district and representing all of STEM, all of CTE, all of robotics, and all of youth apprenticeships was quite a big one. It's exciting. It's humbling. In the classroom, I can make a huge impact on just this set amount of kids. But in a district, I can design systems that make impacts on every student in that district. So, I love that the pieces get to connect and I get to build these systems. I do miss the personal connection of students. I don't get to see them in their everyday lives anymore. But I do get to see the certificates that they earn, and I get to see them compete on robotics teams. And it's more of an impact when you have this large of an umbrella. And I'm so happy to do this work. I get to see them a little bit more at the end, whereas before I got to be part of that every step, every day. And so if I can help build an ecosystem that outlives me, great. That's a win.
Yeah, and based on your program coordination experience and your time as a frontline educator, I'm curious to ask you, how do you think that the concept of equitable and inclusive education has evolved? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
So it's changed quite a bit, and I in a lot of good ways. And I'm glad to see, we have a lot of distance to travel, but we've traveled a long distance too. So I'm happy to report that we do have some pretty good systems in line. So we have systems to help students, we have systems that support students, and we even have individualized career coaches in my district who sit down with every student and figure out a 6-year plan for them. And that starts in the end of 6th grade or so. They start sitting down with them and saying, okay, what would you like to do? What do you think you're good at? And more so, what skills would you like to do? Not necessarily the job, because sometimes we don't know what's going to exist. And so we have come a long way. I want to say that it's taken decades for us to get to this point. And we could use a little more pushing, but I'm happy to say that at least we're moving forward.
Yeah, and Doctor, a large focus of your work is creating hand-on STEM opportunities and structured youth apprenticeship pathways that connect students to meaningful careers. And I think that the work that you do is more essential than now because, with the lack of skilled labor that is ever so prevalent now. I think the work that you do is more important than ever before. So the question to you is, what do you think the experimental learning opportunities are so important, and why do they matter as much as they do when it comes to outcomes? And I know that you've seen them firsthand, so I'm curious to get your thoughts there.
Yeah, so when we're talking about youth apprenticeships and internships and school-based enterprises and any place where a student can test out abilities, it's a wonderful thing because first of all, they don't pay for it. they get to go out into the workforce and get paid usually. And sometimes it's for free, but most of the time in my district, they get paid as a youth apprentice. And so that's a wonderful thing on their end. On the industry's end, I mean, I'm sure you're well aware, it's well documented about the skills gap that's been going on for years. You know, we might have 150,000 people looking for jobs, but they don't have the skills, and so it's a mismatch. So we need to figure out a way, as a society across the US, we need to figure out how do we line up our students with the need that is out there? And how do we get them good paying jobs? And how do we fill the skills gap? Because I know for me, when I call a plumber, good luck getting one.
Yeah.
You know, good luck getting an electrician right away, and good luck. And it's because they're so short-handed, and we need to fill those gaps as a society. We also need good paying jobs for our students. So it's a win-win. As far as the good news is, policymakers across the U.S. are starting to write in things like youth apprenticeship policies. I know the state of Delaware just signed one where you're required to offer youth apprenticeship opportunities. The state of Maryland is doing it. And there's a lot of states who are enacting these policies for that very reason. It's a good opportunity, but also we need it in industry. I'm sure industry has been banging the drum for many, many years.
Yeah, and Doctor, I'm curious to ask you about how we rethink rather, recruitment from an employment perspective. You know, because I work with employers to amplify the hiring of people with disabilities as a speaker, but I also know that it's important to rethink possibilities through recruitment from the career, technical, and STEM realm, my friend. So what's your message to employers about the importance of rethinking recruitment in the way that they attract top talent? What's your message, my friend?
So that process should have changed a long time ago, and if it hasn't, it needs to. And I know that when I've approached companies to hire youth apprentices, at first they were very skeptical. And it really takes a few good hires for them to understand how incredibly important it is for them to hire those students, for them to have diversity, for them to have people with different perspectives. So it's lucrative. It's important for them to do that. And so there's a whole bunch of different ways that they can do that. I do think that there needs to be this partnership, and there is in my district, with industry, schools, community colleges, and then policymakers. All of us need to work together to move this forward, because if one voice is missing, then it just gets misconstrued, and they don't understand that perspective. In my state, we have workforce networks that kind of help too, so we include them in that conversation. And the better the relationship, the better the policy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also curious to get your thoughts on equipping students with the competitive skills that, prepare them for today's modern workforce. What do you think that mission looks like in practice, and how has it informed the work that you do every day, my friend?
So in practice, it looks a lot less glamorous than the mission statement that is on our website, but it's
Sure.
a lot more rewarding. And so it's sitting down with employers to design the best youth apprenticeship or registered apprenticeship. It's talking to them about their needs and wants. It's giving students real opportunities, but also responsibility. Sometimes that last part hurts. And it's working with teachers. We need to align our coursework, because we actually give industry recognized credentials to these students when they leave. It has to be something that industry recognizes, and it has to be something that can go from state to state to state, and it's recognized. So it might be licensing for nursing. It might be a culinary license. It's any number of things. It might be a welding license or a certificate for CNC machining. So whatever that is, it needs to fit that student. It's really easy in this job to get lost in logistics, and it's really easy to get lost in fights when it comes to policy. So I always ask myself, does this give a young person relevant experience and a competitive edge? And if it's yes, let's move forward. And that's it. That's the question, that's the engine that drives that interaction.
Yeah, and To that point, I'm curious, Doctor, to get your thoughts on this. National research from the National Institute of Health also suggests that STEM education has significantly impacted, academic achievement in the way that we look at cognitive development, particularly for strong gains in science and in learning, my friend. So, how do you believe that a STEM education specifically has impacted cognitive development and learning, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I love that the research backs up what those of us in the classroom have felt for years. I love that. So we know that, we've always felt it, and we're glad that it backs it up. So STEM doesn't just teach content, it teaches you how to think. And that's the real value, because when you learn to investigate, test ideas, and reason through problems, those habits, they carry on through every subject. They're going to carry on through every job, and it produces sharper, more capable thinkers and those problem solvers that we were talking about. We need those in the future. So we have to protect the part of STEM that drives those gains, and that's that hands-on work, that's the productive struggle, and that's often messy. So we have to protect that and real-world problem solving. And sometimes that's hard to set up in a classroom. The temptation is to water it down. Temptation is, oh, I've got too many kids in this class. Temptation is to do that. And I would recommend that no one does that. Don't succumb to temptation, and let them struggle a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm going to combine my next two questions because
Okay.
they're interconnected. So, the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics says that STEM occupations are projected to grow at a significantly faster rate than non-STEM occupations. And then our friends over, at when we talk about STEM education, they also report that it'll serve as one of the primary pipelines into America's, technology-driven workforce in the future. So I'm curious to ask you about how you think STEM can be a positive driver or a competitor or contributor to a more innovative workforce. What are your thoughts there?
The students we're teaching right now are heading into an economy that will reward STEM skills and talent. That it will reward experience. It already is, but it's very true. It opens up that pipeline. So if you can get a student to opportunity with a little bit of skill and a little bit of experience, the world is their oyster. It is ready for them. It will be one of the most important levers we have for shaping the future workforce. And it's because it's where economic opportunity and innovation intersect. That problem solving I'm talking about, we're going to have to do that. This economy is changing faster than we can keep up with it. So the jobs that I'm setting these students up for often don't exist yet, and the teachers don't know what they're going to be either. So that's exactly why the work we do matters. And as innovation accelerates, the economy is going to need people at every level. We're going to need teachers. We're going to need apprenticeships. We're going to need industry to help us. So if it's done right, it builds an adaptable school, and it also builds an adaptable workforce.
Yeah, and how do you think that stable ground can help American students and the American economy in general sort of stabilize and give people high quality but also high paying jobs? What are your thoughts on the economic impact of this discussion, my friend?
So I've got a little snippet of that. I've seen pieces of it and what it does to families. So on the student end, it changes the entire economic overview of a family and future families. One of the things we did is partner with a lineman school that happens to be in my backyard, and it's one of two on the East Coast. And so we were able to write some grants. We sent some students through. We sent a few more students through that school, and they become linemen. They come out with no debt. And often these students are students who don't have anything else going for them. They're not the champion of the chess club, and they're not the football player, and they don't really know what they're going to do. And here they are looking for an opportunity. When presented with the opportunity, we had a 100% pass rate, and 100% of those students finished. And then we had mothers who were crying at the end. And I remember them saying, we didn't know what he was going to do. We had no idea. And now you look at it, and the first class has been out for 2 years now, and they're doing things like starting families and buying trucks. And they didn't necessarily come from high means, but when you gave them the opportunity, they seized it. And so it's genuinely thrilling for me to see that. I get to see it on a small scale, and I hope it's happening across the US. But they're not distant science fiction concepts. This can happen right in your backyard.
Yeah, absolutely. And Doctor, I'm curious to get your thoughts on the impact of things like artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and robotics, and geometrics as well. And how do you see those fields contributing to the next generation of not only American innovation and moving advancement forward, but what career opportunities might this also create for students? What are your thoughts there?
So the way I see it is we have a landscape that is completely open. It's uncharted territory. AI is new. Taking care of AI is new. And what excites me the most about this is all the things that we try to cultivate as teachers and in the education system: curiosity, creativity, persistence. That's exactly what they need. You don't have to be a prodigy to do this job. You do have to be willing to learn and adapt. And I like that too. So as long as we can make that adaptable workforce, then they will succeed. And I think it's just wide open. I think if you apply yourself as a student, you'll be able to learn new skills that I don't even know, that we don't know because they don't exist yet. So, I'm so happy to see that we do have futures for these students. It will also change the economy in a wonderful way because people will be working, and it will shape the future families. When those doors open and those students walk in them with confidence, things are going to change, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about equity in STEM education, when we look at the whole concept of educational equity, as we were talking about earlier, it has an evolving and ever-changing landscape. But specifically for STEM education, I'm wondering your thoughts on how do you think we increase equity in STEM education so that more students are inspired to pursue a career in STEM? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, first, I think that equity isn't about lowering any bars. I think it's about giving the same success and support to raise everyone to a bar. And so that it's a different perspective. We don't water it down, we don't make it easy. That's one thing. Now, the bad news is throughout the US right now, a lot of STEM students are getting their opportunities by their zip code.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard. That's a hard truth that we're going to have to face. Some states are handling it a certain way. I know that there are innovation hubs that are starting up, and they're using lottery processes to get students to apply, and they go to this innovation hub. I know that. I also know that some places don't have those. And so you're just stuck with whatever school offers you, and so that's something we need to take a hard look at, and all of us need to look at that. That is where youth apprenticeships can shine, because no matter what's offered at the public school system, there might be an opportunity just down the road in a youth apprenticeship. And so you might get the best teacher just because you were able to get that youth apprenticeship.
Yeah, and Doctor, I've got two questions left for you. And the first of
Uh-huh.
those two questions is this. If you could leave educators, parents, and policymakers and students with one core message about the future of STEM and a career in technical education and workforce development and the future and what you're most hopeful for and what you think still needs to sort of close the gap, what would be your final message of core inspiration and things for us to consider, my friend?
So my one message would be every student deserves an opportunity, no matter what that opportunity is. It might be college, it might not. Be open to that and allow it. And it's also on all of us to build it. It's not on a regular teacher in a classroom, not just on them. It's not just on the parents. To the students, I'd say, stay curious. Don't count yourself out. Like, you might try something and love it. So before you try something, don't knock it. And then for parents, your belief in your child is more powerful than any school system or any school person. So what you say to them matters. So be open for them too. I would say that. But yes, every student deserves an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Doctor, tell me if I asked you to write sort of the end chapter of your career and your life, how do you think your life and legacy, how do you think you would want that to be defined?
If I'm being truthful, I don't necessarily need my name remembered, but I'd rather the impact be remembered. So I hope students can see a future they couldn't see before. And I hope that they gained the skills and confidence and knowledge they needed under a system that we created. And, for educators and colleagues, I'd be honored if their work was easier and if the students' opportunities was greater. And so if I had to define like a legacy or anything like that, it would be she opened doors
Yeah,
and just something simple and not just for the students who already were walking through those doors.
yeah, absolutely. And finally, Doctor, tell me if people want to get connected with your school district or yourself personally and all the great work you're doing, what's the best way they can do that?
So they can just go to my LinkedIn and you can contact me through there and you'll see my name's right there. And it's the easiest thing to remember and the easiest thing to see.
Well, I have to tell you, LinkedIn is the new way of networking, isn't it?
It seems to be.
Yeah.
It works pretty well.
And that's how we got connected, so it must work,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, Doctor, I really want to thank you for your work in career and technical and STEM education and for your obvious passion and dedication to the field of education and for engaging in conversation with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Well, I really appreciate it. And do you mind if I plug my new book?
Absolutely. Go right ahead, my friend.
It was just published on Juneteenth, and it's The Educator's Guide to Youth Apprenticeships. So, it's if I had help in the beginning and somebody said, this is what you need to do step by step, it would be this book.
Absolutely. And before we say goodbye, tell me a little bit about the book and what you hope readers get from it, my friend.
So the book is all about youth apprenticeships, and if you're being tasked to start a youth apprenticeship program, much like I was, and it's just on top of the regular job that you're doing, and you have to get this done, that's what it is. At the beginning of every chapter has a real story that happened, and it kind of relates to the content, but it's everything from, well, how do you pitch this? How do you start this? How do you get it approved? How do you talk to employers? And back then, I remember thinking, I don't have time for this and I don't have time to track it. And so looking back, I went ahead and made digital resources that you can just download, templates that will help you from the beginning, because it's awfully hard when you're going through that to figure it out on your own. And so at the end of every chapter, there are kind of like worksheets and surveys and all sorts of things you can use to collect your data, to move you forward, and to ask questions for your program specifically.
Absolutely. And if people want to invest in getting the book, what's the best way they can do that?
Right on Amazon. So if you type in youth apprenticeships and handler, it's right there. And if you want, we can put the link on there somewhere too. So
Yeah, I'll make sure it's included in the show notes for sure. But
yeah.
I really appreciate this conversation, and I want to commend you for the great work that you're doing in education. And it was a delight to meet you, my friend.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out. This was a great time, and thank you for the wonderful questions. They were really in depth. I appreciate that too.